Hello, welcome back to the channel, and welcome to, well, firstly this beer and also my brand new very red shirt. I'll be honest, I feel a little bit like budget Santa sitting here, if Santa did indeed exist in the middle aisles of discount supermarkets. But anyway, let's talk about this. So this video is another trip into my origin series, taking a look at beers that I feel were somewhat formative in my love for the brewing art form and, more importantly, the product that results from it. And this one is no exception. This one may be less well known nationally and internationally, but it is still a pretty big hitter. This is Bateman's XXXB. Now on the label it does claim that it's a classic pale ale, but I'll be honest, every time I order this I order it as if I were receiving an extra special bitter, because this it's just a little bit special, or at least it was. Today's question is it still? And is it still any good? And is it worth buying right now in 2023? We will find out. Before we do though, a few little bits of information about the brewery. They are Bateman's Brewery, obviously based in Lincolnshire, which is not too far from my home county of Nottinghamshire, which is why this was probably one of those formative beers, because it's relatively broadly available here as well. The brewery is still family owned and operated, and on the side of the label just here it says craft brewers since 1874. Now I'm sure that's probably a relatively recent addition, jumping on the craft hype marketing, but it's kind of true. These aren't owned by a big multinational conglomerate. These are just regular people who've been brewing for many generations, which, well, is quite impressive. This specific beer was launched on the 1st of February 1978, which at time of recording was 45 years and 2 weeks ago. So safe to say it has been around for a little while. One thing I didn't know about them though, which came up when doing a little bit of research, was that around early 1900s, 1910, somewhere around there, the company was actually involved in the bottling of Guinness and Bass beers for their local area, which, again, bit interesting. But anyway, enough about them. More about this. Let's get into it, shall we? Before we crack this open then, here is a quick look at the bottle. It's a pretty trad bottle, but it's definitely been modernised in recent years. The Bateman's logo, it's got kind of a foil thing there. It's very nice. That bit at the top there with their windmill logo, that's the there you go, craft brewer since 1874 up there. But yeah, pretty standard kind of supermarket trad looking thing, but well, it's not bad looking, I think it's fair to say. So today's weapons of choice are going to be this sub-cold bar blade that came with my beer fridge, and a blue monkey glass, because this is a kind of trad straight up pint glass, which will be very appropriate for this beer. I did forget to say though before that this beer is 4.8% in volume, which, okay, maybe takes it a slight way away from that extra special bitter ideal I was kind of mentioning before, but it's certainly not weak either. Let's get into it. Now then, I think it's fair to say, as far as beer pours go, it's not a great one. The head is just gone. It looks flat as anything in there. The colour of the beer itself, super clear as you would expect from the style. Got a red, chestnutty kind of coloration to it. It's certainly not what you call pale, which is why the classic pale thing, I mean, maybe it's classic from a long time ago, and that is what pales used to look like. Things change, but yeah, you can see why I kind of see this in the kind of best bitter category more than anything else, but that is a touch disappointing, I have to say. Right then, aromas. It is quite pleasant on the nose, I have to say. It doesn't have necessarily fuggy tendencies. It is still undoubtedly old school classic British ale, but there's a nice, slightly zesty, slightly green hop profile to it, and which, to be honest, does obviously help bring it a little bit more to life, get rid of the, I guess, the twiggy ambiance that some trad beers can have. But along with that, huge licks of biscuity caramel malt in there that is, I'll be honest, the real reason why I end up going back to this every so often, because, yeah, I think it's decent. But I've not had it for a while, and having seen this pour, I am a little bit worried. So let's find out, is Bateman's XXXB still worth your time and money in 2023? Let's find out, shall we? Cheers. Now then, I have to say, despite the disappointment visually, a lot of my expectations for what this was going to taste like based on that haven't really come true. It's got quite a good carbonation level, but for whatever reason, it's just not reacting in this glass. Is the glass too clean? I don't know what to say, but yeah, it's not spiking off anywhere. It's just sits in there. As soon as it hits your tongue, though, big explosion of carbonation, just rocketing around the mouth. It's not too much. It's maybe a bit fizzy for the style in this instance, but it would be very different on a hand pull. And nice, sweet caramel biscuit, almost a bit of raisin in there. And again, some of those classic hop choices have managed to weirdly just keep it a little bit modern. I'm not sure what hops are in use in this, maybe it'll tell us on the back, but there is just a little bit of that spritzy, citrus, fresh, nearly piney, nearly kind of grassy hop flavour that, yeah, just it's not modern, don't get me wrong, but it's almost bridging the gap in some way. Right then, top to bottom taste test time. So initially, quite carbonated, as I said, bit of sweetness up front. That is about it at that point. First kind of third of the tongue, say pretty middle of the road, old school ale bitterness, but also quite a lot of malt profile, which is very rare for, well, any beer really to have the malt profile that far forward. But that is also especially odd of a traditional British ale. It's normally all in the aftertaste, but no, it's there, and it's, well, it's biscuity. It's not too sweet actually, and there's a bit of a, as I said before, a kind of dried fruit raisin sultana flavour that, well, yeah, biscuits with sultanas in, Garibaldi's or squashed fly biscuits as they used to be called in some places in the UK, but yeah, you know what I mean. And then kind of mid palate, gets quite spritzy again, carbonation back into effect, and then we're into hop county really, because it's green, citrus. They're not intense. It's not a hoppy beer, but there is quite a lot going on in terms of hop flavours. As I say, citrus fruits, but subtle, bit sweeter, not too tart, not too acidic, and kind of a well-balanced, it's not quite pine, it is more kind of fresh, sweet grass notes, but again, subtle, but what they're doing, whipping themselves together and then in with that malt, actually, it's very nice. And then as it gets to the back of the tongue, that fruited biscuit sensation carries on. It's smooth, it's thin, if we're honest. Very splashy beer, but we kind of knew it was going to be. But the flavour is good. And then on the aftertaste, slight drying at the back of the mouth. The caramel really comes to the front. There's a few hoppy notes just dotting about the place, almost acting as seasoning. They're not intense, they're not over the top. They're actually quite difficult to pick out which ones they are, but the flavour profile is pretty much mirrored throughout the entire beer. And to be honest, that aftertaste just keeps me wanting to go back for another sip. Right then, let's take a look at the bottle. On the front then, XXXB, written two ways, both 3XB and the words triple XB. It says a classic pale ale with a Moorish flavour, 4.8%. It's definitely Moorish, I'll give them that. As we already said, craft brewer since 1874. It says, our story is one of enterprise and innovation, always looking forward whilst remaining true to our family roots. After 4 generations, Batemans is still fiercely independent. Honesty, creativity and gritty determination fuel our passion for our beers. With 3 malts and 3 hop varieties, XXXB is bursting with aroma and flavour. The delicate aroma of biscuit and fruit unleashes a distinctive peppery, fruity flavour, which is followed by earthy hops and a dry maltiness. The perfect thirst quencher and thoroughly delicious too. I'm not saying I got that spot on for what they intended, but I'm pretty happy with my review. That gels very well, and I do absolutely agree. Allergens, it does say it contains malted barley and wheat, so there is some wheat in this beer. Yeah. That's it. Is this still worth time and effort in 2023? Yes, of course it is. That, I think, might be one of the best we've had in the Origin series so far. I'm chuffed with it still. Yeah, I'll definitely buy a few more of those, I think. It's not the best, but if you're in the mood for some tradition, you could do a lot worse. And that really is all I've got to say about it. So as always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you haven't already, subscribe if you will be so kind. And I'll catch you next time. Cheers.